All right, it is 1 o'clock. We are going to get ourselves rolling. There's a good chance that we will actually get you out of here early. I know you're all bummed to hear that. But depending on how the next couple of sections go, what questions you have and that sort of thing, that's going to kind of dictate how much longer we're here today. We will definitely take a 15-minute break in between things. So my name is Amy Tickey. I was mentioned a little bit earlier as someone who has done some organization for this conference. Some of you have probably received emails from me. Some of you have probably received more emails than you want from me. Thank you very much for bearing with me as we put together this conference. It's really weird coming back after skipping a full year. So we made some adjustments and course corrections, and we're hoping that, that the layout this year works really well for you all. So this portion is a Q&A panel, and in your registration, you had an opportunity to ask any questions that you had at that time for our panelists who are current or former instructors, words are hard, at different levels here at NDSU. And we're also going to take some time after we go through some of those pre-submitted questions for you to ask other questions you might have. So if something pops into your head, write it down, and we will have an opportunity for you to ask that question. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the microphone. We're going to start off with an introduction from each of our presenters up here, our panelists. They're going to introduce themselves, the department they currently teach in or previously have taught in, and how long they have been teaching.
Hi, my name is Jason Boynton. I'm an associate professor of mathematics, and I've been teaching here at NDSU for about 15 years. Before that, I taught high school and was also like a TA. So, you know, I've been teaching maybe since I was like 22-ish. And I'm like almost 50 now, just so.
Hello, I'm Damaris Bibi. I was a TA in the Department of Sociology for 2 years, from 2019 to I think last semester. And currently I'm the graduate coordinator for the GPS Academy. So, yeah.
All right. Hello, my name is Sarah Sunderland, and I teach in we have the really long department name. Apparel, merchandising, interior design, hospitality management is our total name, but I teach in the apparel side of that. So I teach product development and teach people how to sew and all the construction things, textiles. And I've been at NDSU teaching for 20 years. This is my 20th year. I had to say that this morning on the phone, and I had to step back for a second. So it's been a long time.
Hello, it's good to see all of you. Good afternoon. I hope you had like good lunch. I know many of you were just here, but I think they have more food left there. So you can have seconds if you want. Anyways, going back, I am Anuradha Vegi. I'm an assistant professor of practice in plant science department. I'm part of cereal and food science faculty. So I teach quite a few food science courses here at NDSU. I'm also an advisor for undergraduate students, and I am currently serving as food science coordinator. So I help with a lot of curriculum development and all that for food science. So I'm happy to see all of you.
Hi, I'm Kimmy Booth. I am an assistant professor of practice in the Department of Biological Sciences. And I have been teaching here at NDSU in my current role as a faculty member for 5 years. But I also was a graduate student here at NDSU. I have attended this same conference quite a few years back as a TA. I taught an additional 6 years as a graduate student.
Thank you so much. So the first question I have that was submitted by a registrant was, when you get flustered by a teaching situation, what helps you calm down? And not everybody has to answer, but if you feel you got a good one, let me know and I'll bring you the mic.
I don't know if it's a good one, but I will say I get flustered quite a bit. So something that I teach in my own courses are considered like controversial issues. So there's a lot of diverse opinions about the things that we talk about in class. And of course, when we talk about controversial issues, there are all sorts of people that feel very strongly. And sometimes those opinions are presented in unprofessional ways that are a little confrontational. So sometimes in being an unconfrontational person, I get flustered. So the first thing I do is I just take a deep breath and I try to understand where the person is coming from like a place of empathy and respect. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard that saying that's like, what does it feel like to be wrong? And it feels like being right? Like if you feel so passionate about something, you're not ever thinking that you're wrong, right? So I try to understand that like this is just coming from like a place of compassion. And usually where I go from there is I ask like follow-up questions, kind of trying to take the tone of the room from a 10 back down to like a nice 3 or 4 where class should be. So really, I guess just deep breath, take a step back, understand where students are coming from, and ask open-ended questions, really trying to get at where they're coming from.
I think I can add to that. I teach quite a few lab-based courses. So you might notice that some of the students may be undergraduates who are just learning certain techniques. So they probably don't know how to hold a pipette and those kind of things. So you should not, oh, that's not the right way to do it. Or, don't, use that kind of tone probably. You should understand that they're just learning it for the very first time. So you could be the person to teach them how to use it the right way and things like that. So that's one example. There could be several other things, but know that we have lab training to handle waste or to handle equipment and things like that. So make sure to take those trainings and ask your the students who you are going to TA for also to take some of those trainings because they are available online through our NDSU safety office. So, yeah.
I just know that I think humor works really well when you're nervous. I talk really, really fast when I'm nervous. And so technology is almost always my nemesis when I come to class. Pretty much anything has happened in my class for technology. And I just have to laugh. I'm just like, well, okay, that's not going to work today. So then what do we do? What's plan B? When I was a TA, my advisor said, it's not good enough to just have plan B for class. You have to have plan C as well. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. So some days I'm on like plan E and F, trying to figure it out, and it's okay. And I teach a freshman class, and I always think, I'm nervous maybe on that first day, which is kind of weird because if you've done this for 20 years, you shouldn't really be nervous on the first day, but I still am. And I always think, well, they're nervous too. Like you are just like a freshman right now. So they relate well to that because I'm like, whatever could happen can happen and it's okay. One day I lost this was last year when we were teaching high flex, I lost the mic pack in my pants. They fell out the bottom of my pants. And the students didn't know if they should laugh or if they should, and I'm like, it's okay, just laugh, because that was really stupid. So it was hooked on to my lapel, but the pack fell out to my feet. And then I had, then what do you do then? Try to get it back out again. And so you just have to laugh sometimes, but it'll be okay. It always gets better after day one. It always gets better.
So I never taught a class at the time I was about teaching a class, the COVID started, so everything went online. But then the class I was teaching was quite a large class. There were about 200 per class, and they had 3 sessions. So we did that every Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I guess. And the class was very large, and I was new, standing in front of a whole bunch of students. And all I did was just like smile because it gets tense and nervous, nerve cracking sometimes. So you just have to be merciful to yourself sometimes and smile and just tell yourself everything is okay. So that's what I did to myself when I was in such situation.
I guess I would second my colleagues here about if you have jokes when you get flustered, by all means, humor is great. I get flustered when I don't know the answer to a question that a student will ask. That will happen to you too, I think, if you're human. And if that does happen, then I don't know is a complete sentence and one that you can take a lot of pride in saying, I don't know the answer to that. Let me get back to you, rather than BS a student. So those are the things that make me flustered, and that's how I deal with it if I don't know the answer to something difficult.
Thank you. Our next question that came in is, do you have any time management tips? And I'll just hover around behind you to pass the mic if I need to.
Yes, I did have time management skills. Before the COVID, we used to take our exams to QBB for, I think it has a machine kind of marking the script, but then everything closed down and I had to do it manually. And it required me to be, to manage my time because I was also a student and I had classes and assignments and everything at the same time, marking about 400 students, about 500 students manually, and it was like multiple choice. So it had a due date. So I started, as soon as they start turning it in, I get notification, I start marking them so that it decrease my time to have less job and then also focus to submit my assignments and everything. So I was kind of like having to-do list. So at least every day I have to mark maybe 10 to keep the job down and to also focus on my own personal work. So that's what I did to manage myself, to manage my time and to manage the TA work.
I probably have more ways of how not to have time management, but I don't know. I know our syllabus is important, but my syllabus goes out the window on day 2. Like, oh, we took too long and now we're behind. And there's, I mean, bless them. There's students that write that in their planner and pen. And I'm like, I'm sorry. No, but I do keep tests always the same, but you just got to go with the flow, what's happening that day. But I will tell you, one of my first semesters teaching, it was a night class. It was 2.5 hours and it was 185 people in a room that sat 185 people. It was miserable. And I would get done and I would be done with what I had to teach that day. Like that's all I had. I didn't have any more and we'd be done. We'd be way early. And of course the students are like, well, heck, this is no problem. You know, I'm like, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I don't have anything else. Like I can't do it. But it got better. You know, after you do it a few times, it gets better, but I still learn time management even now. So, but I just think that it doesn't always go the way you planned it to go.
Yeah, I'm that post-it person, like, you know, have all the list of items that I have to do. I write it down and I cross it off when I'm done kind of thing. But I've, you know, last 5 years, I'm in my current position for like this is my 6th year. But what I started doing is put it on calendar, Outlook calendar, iPhones have calendars. Anyway, just put like, you know, if you have a meeting with your advisor or with your instructor, put it on the calendar and you won't forget. You know, put 2 alarms on it, like so that it'll annoy you till you know that you have to get to that meeting, kind of thing. So please do that. That helps. Also, it helps you document it later too. Like, let's say 2 years later, if somebody asks you what you have done as a TA, you can always say that, oh, I've done this. I've developed a course along with the instructor, or things like that, because you probably already have put it on your calendar, wrote down some note related to that. So that can help you document as well. So that helps me, and I can manage time relatively well. I won't say I'm the best person ever. Obviously, nobody can do that job, but you can still manage it pretty well. Yeah.
I don't have anything particularly innovative or creative here other than, you know, like keep a well-organized to-do list. Always plan for things to take longer than you think they will. Yeah, plan your time. That's it. Nothing special.
You got one?
The calendar thing, and also one thing that's helpful for me to remember is that there are, if you teach Monday, Wednesday, Friday, there are 43 lectures, not 16 weeks, right? There's 43 lectures, and it might be a good idea to go in and like X out the days that are like holidays, just so you get a better idea. Here's what I need to get through, and here's how much time I really have to do it. So I'm now a 43/44 lectures person, and I do put it all in a calendar. But the other time management stuff, like my own personal whatever, I can't speak to that.
Thank you. Our next question, what helps you cultivate a desire to teach?
This is the most rewarding thing I think that you can do. The taxpayers in the state of North Dakota are paying your salary to teach their kids. They really don't care about your research. But teaching is quite rewarding. And for me, I love it because it runs in the family. I mean, just like my mom and dad and aunts and uncles, they all taught. So it's rewarding. It's helping people. I mean, it's helping people get through something that you probably may have had a struggle with before. I think that's really it. It's good to help people.
So I don't think this question applies to me because I've never taught before. So I'll pass.
I just think that to piggyback on that, but to say that my students really make this, well, why else would you do this for so long? And so just having them, you got to watch for those little moments where they really get it, and it really makes a difference, whatever subject you're teaching. And even just to be not, that your subject is the best thing ever, but just seeing them as individuals and learning so much from them as students, I think.
Yeah, I echo what all my colleagues told us here. Basically, you're teaching the future, right? Like they are going to apply the knowledge that they learned here through you, and then they'll probably develop something better for us, for our society, for everything that the world has to offer. So if you can do a good job teaching now, that the world is in a better place. Like it'll be better for everyone. So I would say like that helps us to do better in our teaching. And apart from it, you would probably you won't realize it now, but because I've been teaching for quite a few years, I get notes or like an email from past students that, Dr. Vegi, you taught me food science and so year, and then I'm applying that now, that particular concept or a topic. I enjoyed it when you taught, or things like that. And that is, whenever I get that kind of email, I feel like, oh, wow, I've done something good, kind of thing. So you would have that feeling, I assure you that.
And I print all those types of emails and put them up on the cork board just behind my computer. And like my most recent one is my favorite. It says, Dr. Booth, you made it so that it was fun learning, and I didn't know it could be fun to learn. That's very counterintuitive. And I was like, that's perfect. That is exactly what I wanted you to get out of this, that learning could be fun. So I print emails that give me joy and spark inspiration. I also try to recognize causes of burnout. So something I didn't realize as a first-year professor or first-year teaching as a grad student was that having my email on all the time, my work email connected to my phone, was a bad idea. So I nipped that in the bud pretty quickly. But everybody has their different sparks of burnout. So make sure you're recognizing them and eliminating them, and just kind of keep your eye on whatever your goal is. So like my goal is cultivating scientifically literate citizens. So keeping that, again, maybe on your corkboard or something like that.
Thank you. Our next question is, how can you test students quickly through an exam, but using conceptual questions? Everybody just dying to jump on this one.
I don't have much, but I teach food science, as I said already. So one of the questions I had incorporated was basically ask them to look for some food recalls that happened in recent days, because you probably would always see it on news that chicken was recalled or beef was recalled for so and so reason, E. coli, salmonella, whatever it was in there. But then I asked them to pull up an article on food recall and ask them what was the thing in there that made it bad for you, kind of thing. So it's like, I know, like I talk about biological hazards, physical hazards, all those things that could be in the food. But when they actually see it happening in the real world, when they looked at the example and they realize it themselves that this is a bad thing, it's happening now, and how we can prevent those things, they pretty much learn about those kind of things when I give those kind of examples in my tests. So, and then that's one example. There are several, I'm sure, but you all may not be in food science, so it could apply. You could do something similar in your field as well.
Challenged by the quickness.
Yeah, quick can be hard to do. Thank you all for that. Okay, next question. This one might be a brief one if one of you just knows right off the top of your head. Is there any specific format that NDSU follows for a syllabus? I'm getting nods. I don't know if you can all see them in the back, but yes. I believe if you do a search on the NDSU website, you should be able to pull up templates. In our next section, when we talk about the teaching assistant learning community, I will also tell you where you can find some in a learning community section. So we will jump on to the last one that came in ahead of time. How do we reduce the communication gap, especially during online classes? It feels like we're talking to a machine and no one is listening. It gets very boring at times.
Can you repeat the question, please?
How do we reduce the communication gap during online classes? It feels like we're talking to a machine and no one is listening. It gets very boring at times.
Boy, that's a great question. First thing that came to my mind is that I think you have to answer the emails that come in like as quickly as possible. You will get a lot of emails if things do shut down and we go to online, like you'll get a lot of emails. And I think it's really important to answer them as quickly as possible. You might, if you have time, you might think about doing an extra office hour or two. When we shut down last year and I was teaching Math 165, that's Calculus 1. Instead of doing the hybrid thing, I just met my students and collaborate on Blackboard, and I did an extra hour of lecture now I have tenure, so I can do whatever I want, kind of, but something to think about it. If you have extra time and you want to volunteer, maybe put in an extra hour or two. Like I was supposed to meet with my students 3 hours a week. I met with them 6 hours a week. If you got an extra hour, maybe that's helpful.
So again, I never taught, but then I sat in a class where our professor was, much of her class was full of activities. So it involved those in classroom at the time we were doing the hybrid session and those back home or online. And so she divides the class and then she puts them together in one, like the home guys will be on one platform and gives them this activity. And they'll have to be responding on Blackboard or Zoom or whatever they were using, she was using to bring that communication back and to bring that involvement and kind of like people being in class and then having to partake in whatever is going on. And it was helpful. Everyone was like involving in their responses. We did communicate, spoke through the online system. Those who were in class also spoke. So it can be another way to, if your classes are full of activities, just to get their involvement in whatever you are doing helps. So that's it.
Yeah, a couple of things with that. I think in the last I don't even know how long it's been that we've been doing this, but year and a half, 2 years, whatever it's been. When we stopped in the middle of the semester, you had your course planned out to be face-to-face, and then whoop, one morning, you were different and you had to pivot and do everything. I hate that word that we've learned since then. We still did pivot though, but I hate the word. We had to change. You had to change everything you were supposed to be doing. And so then when fall semester came along last year, I was like, well, now you've had time to think about this. So, you should have this down a little bit better. I don't know that it was better, but maybe we thought about it more and it was okay. So I think that the abruptness of ending overnight one day over spring break, by the way, that was much different than planning ahead for it a little bit. But I always met, like the last year, even if we were online, I met with my students at their time that they were scheduled to have class. And that was good and bad, but it at least gave structure that we were doing that together. Now this summer I taught an online class. I taught beginning apparel construction online to students who had never had that before. And 10 years that I've taught that online. But my number one thing is to always think about what the students see when they open that up. Is it clear to them where they're supposed to go to get information? Because it could be really super clear and make sense to you. But when they open that up and they open Blackboard, for instance, and they go, what tab are they supposed to go to find this? And you just really have to think that through a little bit about what that looks like to a new person coming in. And I have teenage kids, and I would say, here's my class. If you were a student, could you tell where you were supposed to go? Like, where you're supposed to go on day one. And so I overly simplify it maybe and say, big arrows, this is where you go first, you do this first. But students don't necessarily know your plan on Blackboard for how you label things and how you organize things and what files you use to put, folders in and all that stuff. And I think just the communication of letting them know exactly what was supposed to, and we did lots of checklists, like you can move on now if you've done this, 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 and this. And that was just a way for them to see that everything was done, because they can miss it really, really easy. So that's all I have.
Some of you probably are going to teach it for the very first time in fall of 2021, but then those of you who have already taught know that Blackboard has that announcements option, right? So for online students, sending an announcement, so it actually connects to their email too, really helps, especially when there's an exam coming up. Know that online students actually take the course asynchronously. So they may not be learning 11 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but they may be learning on a Saturday night. That's when they had some time to study because they're working or something like that. So for them, if they look at the email and say, oh, there's an exam coming up, I have to study. So they would know that. That helps actually, although it's extra work for you. But know that these announcements, like if you copy paste the same announcements for the next year, it really helps because you just have to change the date and all that. It really works. It worked for me. So yeah, announcement, use that option.
So I second everything that everybody else has said. Kind of going off of Sarah's comment, I literally label the tab start here for like where you're supposed to go on the first day, and for the announcements, link it to email, send one on a Monday morning, as well as the day before that it's your assignments are due with a checklist, things like that. That I kind of interpreted this question to mean, how do we make like that asynchronous portion, or excuse me, the synchronous portion of class a little more engaging. So I guess I would kind of say things like incorporate formative assessment in whatever way that takes shape for you. So if there's like clicker questions to break up those Zoom things, breakout rooms, the surveys, things like that. Even just like acknowledging that maybe online learning is a little more exhausting and taking a break in the middle of a 75-minute period or things like that.
Thank you so much. All right, those are these pre-submitted questions. So it is now open to any of you who have questions. We have many, many years of experience up here. We have someone who has taught recently as a TA, many people who have taught as a TA in the past and have been in your very shoes. Not your very shoes, but figuratively. Does anyone have any questions? And I will run the mic around. Perfect.
I was just, have any of you experienced discrimination from a student, and then what did you do about it?
I guess I can speak to that. I know, like, I've been asked many times, like, where are you from? So as a teacher, it should not matter wherever you're from. You could still teach the science. So you tend to get those kind of questions. And also, like, if you're a TA and not the main instructor of the course, what happens is the students may think that you have not as much knowledge in that particular topic or a concept or whatever. And that may not be the truth. You probably were working in an industry for 5 years and then came back to grad school and are at a TA, and you may be more experienced than the instructor who is just the first year assistant professor, maybe. You never know. So, so know that students may have this preconceived notion that you're not experienced, you don't know things. Don't be too bothered by it. You're all human. We're all human. So it happens. So, so that's one of the things that I thought like I would share with you guys on that. Yeah.
But thank you. I do know some of our grad students have been, and I think you have to absolutely talk to a supervisor immediately if you encounter that. And then if it gets dangerous for you, hell, and we might have to face this when it comes to the math situation. Like I thought to myself, if I came in like if I got into a confrontational situation as the instructor, I might be the one to just leave. And then the class, like, this is what happens. I'm going to leave because I don't have time to call like security or whatever. And I don't want to drag it out. So I might just leave. But then absolutely please like talk to a supervisor of some kind. Yeah. If anyone has any like discussion on discrimination.
The question is, how do we deal with any of the preconceived notions if they happen both inside or outside the class, correct?
Yeah, I originally am not from US, obviously. I am long back, I came here as a student myself, and I was an international student at that time. So obviously, English is not my first language. I'm not a native speaker. There are many students who ask me all the time, like, where are you from? And then, did you speak English back home and things like that? And then I said, like, oh, I teach science. And then science has no language barrier to it. And then, so if you don't understand the science behind a concept, then ask me. So I just straight up tell them that way that, it doesn't, if it's totally not understandable, it makes sense, but I think I can make people understand the science. So that's all it matters. So that's how I deal with it, saying that, I just state the truth. That's it. There could be other things. That's just one thing. There could be other things like, as I said, like if they think that you're inexperienced, you can tell them that, you can talk to them that, like, especially if you're a master's student and going to be a TA for undergraduate students, you can tell them that you actually learned those concepts that you're teaching, you learned them throughout your undergraduate program. So that they know that you actually have a knowledge and have a degree in that particular major. So, and then not everybody knows that right away, but once you tell them, they do understand it. And then they think that, okay, yeah, that's true. Like he or she has a degree and they know what they're doing, kind of thing.
Do you have examples?
Yeah, please.
You wanna, you good?
I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
We'll have a chance to do some discussion a little bit later. And if this is a topic that comes up in your discussion group, then we can share thoughts as well. I think something like this is very individual in how you're going to respond. I think one of the keys is maintaining calmness in the situation and being as respectful as you can, even if the other individual isn't, and diffusing the situation. But this is something that we can discuss a little bit later in the next section of our day today. That's okay. You know, the Office of Teaching and Learning doesn't have anything specific to that, but we do have offices on campus, and I will get the specific names of those for you and make sure that those are available to you so you know where to go. But certainly your supervisor is the first place to start. And there's someone who has been here and been around and will know who to ask so they can get you connected to the right place. My hope for all of you, though, is that you don't ever have to face that situation. Do we have any other questions? Oh, okay. I'm going to go with the one that's a little bit closer first, and then I'll get the one that's in the back.
I have a question about just like grading, I guess, with, I like what Dr. Booth was sharing about just empathizing with our students and knowing that they're it might be their first time being expected of undergraduate work, right? And just being able to, I guess, identify that not everyone's trying to get an A, not, kind of figuring out how to grade at their grade level. I just imagine that that will be a little bit challenging, as most of us are probably achievers if we're going for higher education.
Anyone care to comment?
About grading, how to do it quickly or how to do it like. Sure. I mean, I think making some kind of, so in math, I mean, I can empathize a little bit because it's definitely, we do like to look at the process more than the product. So if you make a rubric beforehand, I think that's really helpful. So I know when we grade like a math assignment, just to make it go quicker for the TAs, I'll say, okay, grade on a scale 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 0 if they submit nothing, 1 if they write anything, even if they draw a picture or anything, 2 if they write some math but it's nothing, 3 if they wrote some legible mathematics and maybe they missed a couple details, and 4 if it's just mostly right. So a quick, like, don't make it too fine of a rubric. Like maybe 0 through 10 is going to take you a lot longer to grade than like 0 through 4 if you have that option, I think. But I think beforehand a rubric is really helpful, and then you know, if you got time, you can just quickly look through the papers and just start by separating them into 2 piles, good, garbage. I think. Is that helpful? Okay.
I second that. The rubric is the important part of that. I teach a lot of things that are not, I call it upscannable. That's not a word, I know, but you can't get it graded by the computer upscan sheet. And I need to grade that. And so in some of those classes, I honestly need to grade it in how much it has improved. From, it's still kind of cruddy looking, but we're getting there. And that's important. I always think it's as important to tell the students the things they did right as it is to tell them the things that they need to improve on, which almost always outweighs the things they did right. But sometimes I just look at that project and I think, what is the one thing I can say that is good? Like, oh, the font choice was really great. Like, the good job with that. But now we need to work on this, and this. But I don't know that. I mean, I hope they read that, but I always think that they need to have some little niblet of something that's good, or on the right track, and then here's where we need to, and you can see that improvement. And that's one of those cool things I think that we get to see is that there's change in that. And students don't always remember that, but at the end of the semester, if you can say, do you remember that first thing you turned in that just had that good font? Because it wasn't even that good, but it was something. And now look what you did. And then there, we just have to be able to, sometimes you really got to search though for a good thing.
I just want to add to that one. And Jason said that if they write something, give them a 1 or something like, sometimes you'll get an answer like, sorry, I didn't study for exam today. So please excuse me, I'll do better next time. I don't give points to that, even though the student actually wrote something down there because it's not relevant to the topic. So yeah, you do, when you have to grade like hundreds of papers at the end of an exam, you will realize that some of those will be like that. But then having rubric, like my colleague said here, having rubric will really help you. If your instructor doesn't have a rubric for an exam, you can develop it with his or her help. So please do that, and that will really help save you a ton of time.
Yeah, I was basically going to echo the rubric comment of really being straightforward with the students of what you're looking for. So for example, if I'm looking for an experiment, I need to be very clear, like, please tell me what your treatment control group would be, that type of thing, so that there isn't this opportunity for points to be lost just because there was a miscommunication. So really detailed rubric up front.
Thank you all. And I'm going to head back here because I saw a hand before. Getting my steps in today.
So I'm here at NDSU to be a grad student again. My career was highly negatively impacted by the pandemic, and I have seen such an apathy toward my career field because I was teaching music in a rural school, and a lot of rural schools could not handle the low enrollment numbers. And I've been concerned about yes, we've gone to Zoom for some classes, we've done some other things, but I'm wondering about the future of what that's going to hold, because there's an uncertainty with like teaching music in the K through 12 system now in the future, especially with the Delta variant occurring. But it's like, what have you guys experienced from the pandemic of like teaching at the college level? Like, how has it changed things from how it was before? Like, how do you know if there's like going to be these job security opportunities at the end of this, like a degree? How has it changed the job market for your fields? It's like, that's what I've been very concerned about that. And I'm not going to lie, the pandemic definitely made me kind of apathetic towards my career. And I realized that it's more important to make sure that I make an income and pay off debt and work towards retirement. But I also still love my career. It's hard to know what the future is going to hold, especially when my career got hit so negatively by the pandemic.
What are you going to do after? I can say before the pandemic, I really started to look very closely at like flipped classrooms. Like I did this thing with the Gateways cohort through the Office of Teaching and Learning, I think. So when things go online, it didn't really affect my class too much. The arts, though, in K through 12, you brought up a really hard thing. This is I think we all need to reimagine how we deliver content in general. Like the fact that we're going to just go back and do the same thing that we did before the pandemic makes me furious. But think about how you can think about out of the box, like this business of lining students up in rows and coming into a building to teach them. I think we should try to think of other ways to engage students. So, how can you do that K through 12? If you need students to have instruments in front of them, like, well, that's very challenging. You brought up a very challenging thing, but I would say the first step is to think about how you can deliver content other than rows of chairs, like face to face. And I think as a music instructor, you'll definitely have to put some time into thinking about how to do that. Wow, that's a great question.
I'm going to answer this a little differently from a perspective of my background in what I teach. But I teach so I think we all have clothing on. And so clothing and textiles is something that every person consumes, almost every person consumes on a daily basis in some way. And so that product development cycle is about 18, a year, maybe out, 18 months out. And in March of 2020, that all stopped. And so everything, and it was very overwhelming to me to read email after email after email from industry partners that were, we're canceling billions of dollars of orders, which then is all of these factories that are supporting people, that this was humans that were making things and they didn't have a job because these orders were canceled. And so it was really, really frightening, that especially that first spring, because here we are, having these students, and we're going to send them out into the world that doesn't really exist anymore as it did before. But and there's a lot of people that would disagree with me on this, but I think the apparel industry needed a stop. It needed to stop, and it was a very harsh stop, but it needed to stop and reevaluate how things were done. And it's not going to go back, I hope, to the way that things were done before. It has to change. And our students can see that now, that they don't just have to go with the flow of the way that it had been for the last 50 years, especially in manufacturing and in sustainability things and where we consume things from. We don't have to do it the same way. We can change that. And I think that I don't know, I always try to find the good in things. And if there's like a little ounce of good that came from a stupid pandemic, maybe that was it. Maybe we realized that we couldn't just keep going, because everybody said we need to change this, but nobody actually took the time to change it until they were forced to do that. So from my perspective of seeing those email after email after email, and name brands that we'd all know and brands that we wouldn't know, and how much was being canceled, and just stop that pipeline altogether. And then all kinds of changes that happened in what we wore during that time, unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm not sure, but that changed consumer patterns of what they were purchasing and what they were consuming. And that had a huge impact on what I was teaching in class. So if that was part of your question, maybe more information than you need, but.
Yeah. I'll just add to that one on a personal note. Like my son, he's going to be high schooler soon, but then he was in middle school when all this happened, and then he is a tuba player. So, and then his music teacher asked, like obviously they had to still play the instrument, and they had to actually record it and then send it back to the teacher, the videos. And then the teacher compiled everything, made it into a YouTube video and shared it with the students and the parents. That helped them kind of like, feel that they accomplished something, that, they've learned something. And also there was one point where they had to have a Zoom conversation or meeting with their parents, grandparents, and everyone. And then the kid has to play the instrument and have to record the whole thing. So that was a challenge. So basically, I had to hold the camera on the iPad so that when he's playing, I can record that, and also have the computer screen where we had all the relatives on there. I had to record them watching him play the thing. Oh, I can't explain properly, but you understand the problem there. So we had to do all those things, but it was fun because actually every time I used to go and attend those music, what do they call that, conference or whatever, I will go listen to him playing along with his classmates. But this time, my family back in India, they got to watch him through Zoom. So in the end, it was pandemic. Nobody was able to meet each other, but still people were still, be able to communicate even when they're like worlds apart, So I take the positive in there. I understand, like, I know like what you're going through. I personally felt myself that what's going to happen, to the world in the end. But then we're still here. So yeah, be optimistic, be positive. I know it's not easy to say, it's not easy to do that way. I myself get like down sometimes when, like, especially when I thought there won't be any masks in fall, and now I'm wearing a mask. So yeah, it happens.
Thank you very much. We have got about 7 minutes left. I think that clock's off just a little bit. So in less than 2 minutes, each of you may offer a piece of advice that you wish you'd had when you started teaching.
So guys, if you remember, I've been in your shoes. I was a graduate student TA at this very TA conference. And I remember being there all day thinking, what am I doing here? Because I don't have any control over the course that I am a TA for. And I want you to know that you do. I want you to recognize how important you actually are. You are the boots on the ground. That is, you're the one trying all of these techniques that your professor that you're working with might be asking you to do. You're the one with the face-to-face time with students. And I want you to feel empowered to be able to talk to your professor about any feedback you have for improvement in the class. And hopefully your professor is open to those improvements.
Yeah, ask questions, especially when there's an exam coming up and you have to proctor it, or you have to grade the exam. You don't know how to grade, like the student earlier asked that question, use rubric or whatever. Ask questions before it happens. Most of the time that especially the instructor may have certain idea of what to do in a certain situation. And if you ask that question and he or she answers it, it'll help you do better in your own teaching. But sometimes the questions may come later, especially if something happened in the lab, like, instrument broke or glassware broke. And then those are the things that you may have to come up with some solutions later. But yeah, ask questions.
It always gets better. It may not be great on day one, but the more times you do it, it gets easier. Grading takes a really long time. Just in case you didn't know that. I hate grading. And I'm a pro procrastinator. Like, I am the president of the fan club, and that's not good either. So, but grading takes a long time. But it may be terrifying on day one, but it gets better as you do it over and over and over.
So I will be taking more than 2 minutes. I hope you pardon me. So the first thing I want to say is that you should, as a TA, being a student to I was grading. First of all, if you get the opportunity to teach a class, just take it. I actually wanted to do it, but then COVID happened, and so I couldn't do it. I wish I did, because it would have helped me to have this public speaking more, but I didn't get the opportunity to do it. And secondly, don't procrastinate. Try as much as possible to start the grading early, especially if we are grading a large class. I was grading about like 500, 600, I don't know, but there were 3 batches, and on Mondays, on Tuesdays, and on Fridays, and they keep bringing in, some submit their assignments late and all that. Some also think that I deserve a better mark, so they'll come back to you for regrading, and you will have to be doing that. So the sooner the sooner the better, or the earlier you start grading, the better. So you have time for your personal work and your due date for your own graduate studies. And the other thing that I want to say is also, don't be all consumed with your TA work and your graduate school work. Be involved in other activities, like professional activities. So as the coordinator for GPS, I wish they gave time for us to speak, but since they didn't, I'll use this opportunity to also talk about the GPS, Graduate Professional Skills Academy. And it's coordinated by the graduate school. We are housed by the graduate school in Putnam Hall. I know we all received this. And so these are a small flyer for advertisement. And so the GPS is, as so far as we are a graduate student here in NDSU, you are, first of all, I want to tell you that you're already a member of the GPS Academy, and we do have programs, professional programs. That is, we actually have 8 paths: the career, communication, events that are geared towards communication, towards leadership, towards management, towards entrepreneurship, teaching, scholarship and research, personal excellence, and career skills. So we collaborate with offices on campus and outside campus, with the OTL, with the Career for Writers, with the Career and Advising Center, with the library, with the CCAS, Commerce, Chambers of Commerce, and other offices within and outside campus. So speaking on programs and events, I want to use this opportunity to also hype the upcoming events that we'll be having in September on the 10th. It's actually like a networking etiquette event for graduate students, and you don't want to miss it, please. You don't want to miss this one. And so we are collaborating with the Gate City Bank, and it will be held within hours that is convenient. That's from 5 to 7. I believe that by that time classes have already ended, and towards the weekend, I think on Friday, on the 10th of September, our emails, will be sending out our emails. We are the ones who have been sending out newsletters every Mondays, 12 p.m. So you see these graduate professional skills. So, and we also advertise other events that we collaborate with other offices. So please take note of that and be watching out for our emails and our upcoming kickoff event for the semester. And I wish to see all of you there. So that's mine for today. Thank you.
So I think when you're here, like, take full advantage of this opportunity to teach. If you are going into academia after this, universities hire good teachers before they will hire good researchers. So I think take the opportunity and try everything. I think especially the active learning, like, try to keep students engaged. If you can put anything on your Vita about active learning later, like flipped classrooms, or, you know, talking at students less and getting them to be more engaged, you will get a job way quicker. So the person in the back that wants to figure out, how can I get a job teaching music after this, try everything. Be as creative as humanly possible when it comes to your teaching, and then put it in your Vita, and you will stand out. And you will have a better chance of getting hired than people that just stand in front of the class and talk at students. I really think that's outdated. I know we want to stand up in front of students and show them what we know. Like, I'm on the microphone, I want to tell you what I know, right? I'm setting a bad example, but as much as you can engage the students, please do it. You will get hired much faster than anyone else. So that's one thing. And then really quick, Does everyone in here know what imposter syndrome is? Who on the panel suffered from imposter syndrome at one point or another? Still have it. I still have it. If you feel like you don't belong, it's false. You have been accepted to this graduate program because you deserve to be here. So if you ever need to talk to anyone about imposter syndrome, know that I have it. We can talk about it, and I will try to convince you otherwise. Or anyone, talk to someone about it. It's a widespread thing. It's a widespread thing, and it can be debilitating. So if you can like get over that by talking to someone, I would highly advise that. Thank you.
Let's give a, oh yes, hold the applause. Hold the applause.
I am so glad that you brought up the imposter syndrome thing. Like literally had to seek therapy for it because it is very real and very true. The one thing that helped me the most to get over that was, as you were saying, like you think you don't belong here, you're with all these really smart people. I remember my mentor told me, she goes, okay, so you think we're all smart. Don't you think we would have figured you out if we're really that smart? So don't think you're really like outsmarting all these smart people you think you're around. So thanks for bringing that up.
Let's go ahead and give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you very much. Oh, you need.
Yeah. Thank you. So this, like, because I'm a TA, some of us may be new to the TA work, combining your TA with your school work. Sometimes it can be so challenging and overwhelming. Just take a break or speak to your supervisor or your professor. They are all understanding, and you can just, my supervisor used to tell me, if you're overwhelmed, you need a break, just let me know, so we'll just slow things down, because things will be pulling in here, this one will be pulling in here, you have due date to submit the scores and everything, you have due date for your own assignment. So if you're overwhelmed, just take a break, relax, just take a break for yourself, or speak to your professor you are working with and just let them know that you're overwhelmed, you just need a break, or you may not be able to submit the scores at the time he or she wants it, and they are understanding. They are wonderful people. So just to let you know about that. Thank you.
All right, thank you again to our panelists.